As a mother, I feel joy for others that are granted freedom, but when my son is not one of them, it's heartbreaking for me.
They are inflicting trauma not only on the political prisoners themselves, but also on their family members.
There are over 19,000 political prisoners currently being held in Myanmar's jails and detention centres. Each one of them, no doubt, has family and friends who are stressed and anxious about them. And each one of the family and friends lives in hope that their loved one will be released soon. Hello and welcome to Athan, a weekly podcast that brings you human rights stories from Myanmar. It's brought to you by Fondation Hirondelle. This episode is produced by journalists from The Nation Voice and Frontier Myanmar. Names may have been changed to protect contributors. On Gason Full Moon Day, Dormo found herself unable to sleep once again. Her heart was filled with anticipation as this day held out the possibility of her son's parole. It's been 2 years since she last laid eyes on him.
I cling to hope whenever special days like this arrive. I even lose my appetite, thinking about where he would be coming from. This is despite the fact that my son told me not to expect too much, because he was sentenced to death. As a mother, I feel joy for others that are granted freedom, but when my son is not one of them, it's heartbreaking for me. I just have to keep hoping.
To mark the Gason Buddhist Holy Day on May 3rd, the military junta announced it would release 2,153 political prisoners from around the country. All of them were reported to have been convicted under Section 505 of the Penal Code. This criminalises comments which create public unrest or fear or spread false news. But Dormo's 26-year-old son was not among those released. He was arrested last year. He was charged on multiple counts and subsequently sentenced to death. Dormo has been in hiding since her son's arrest. Even though the chances of him being released are slim, she offers prayers for him every morning, vividly picturing his face in her thoughts. She misses him deeply and only manages to sleep for about an hour every night.
I can't put the intensity of my emotions into words. As his mother, his situation affects me deeply every single day, even though I have to maintain a facade in front of others. My son is not a bad person, quite the contrary in fact, but his arrest has caused me indescribable emotional distress. Each day, I live with the hope that he will be released one day. I have been so restless that I can't sleep at night, and as soon as I wake up, my thoughts immediately turn to him.
Since the 2021 coup, the military junta has been detaining people who express opposition to the so-called State Administration Council, or SAC. As of July 2023, more than 23,700 people have been arrested. That's according to the Assistance Association for Political Prisoners, or AAPP. There are 115 prisoners on death row. The family members of those imprisoned live in hope that their loved ones will be released and come back home, regardless of the life or death sentences they have been given. From time to time, prisoner amnesties are announced, usually on a special day like a Buddhist holy day or festival. There have been 3 amnesties this year, for Independence Day, Thinjan, and then on Gason Full Moon Day. Whenever a special day comes around, the families and friends of prisoners cling to the belief that this time their hopes may be fulfilled. Some family members go to great efforts to gather outside the prisons in the hope that their loved ones will be among those released, but very often those hopes are dashed. Go Tun-ji from the AAPP says the authorities are being intentionally cruel. They should make public their prison list, which includes the names of prisoners held and their sentence length, but they don't. So he says families don't always know which prison their loved ones are in, and nobody knows who is going to be released when the junta announces amnesties.
They relocate prisoners from Yangon to different facilities such as the Ariawadi, Obo, and Minchan prisons. So families, despite their financial hardships, save up and borrow money in order to gather at these prisons in anticipation of their loved ones' release. However, when the sun sets and they realize that their children, nephews, nieces, or spouses have not been set free, it inflicts profound mental anguish upon them. They are inflicting trauma not only on the political prisoners themselves, but also on their family members.
Go Maung cannot join the crowds outside the prison gates waiting for his older brother. Go Aung was arrested for protesting while Go Maung was serving on the front lines with an armed resistance group. But he worries about him all the time. Go Aung has a stomach condition and apparently was injured during interrogation. At night, Go Maung has dreams about his brother being set free, and he calls friends afterwards to check if it's true. When he heard that prisoners would be released for Kason, he was filled with hope.
I reached out to my friends and inquired if my brother was among those released. When I realized he wasn't, I had to console myself by hoping that it might happen next time. I dream about him every night. We have gone through thick and thin together, but now he is imprisoned while I remain on the outside. I can't help but shed tears whenever I receive updates about his deteriorating health.
Last month, Go Maung received the bitter news that his mother had died. She had fallen ill and had no other children or husband to take care of her. Neither Go Maung nor his brother could attend the funeral. Since the coup, there are many other such families who've been torn apart and suffered great emotional distress. Gomoti Zun, an 88-generation student and leader of the Myanmar Students' Democratic Army, says it's a terrible part of Myanmar's history under military rule.
The separation of families has been a recurring issue under these governments for generations, and no real efforts have been made to improve people's well-being. They're unable to be with their loved ones, and their lives crumble as a result. Take a look at the political prisoners especially, and consider the impact on the public. The lives of everyone involved have been shattered.
The stress of conflict takes its toll. A few years ago, the World Health Organization synthesized over 100 studies on mental health in conflict situations. It suggested that 1 in 5 people who've experienced conflict have mental health disorders, such as anxiety, depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, or schizophrenia. Psychiatrist Dr. Monmon says it's crucial for people to recognize the symptoms and get treatment for any mental health problems. Otherwise, she says things can get much worse over time.
At a severe level, people may experience an inability to function in social and professional situations, and they may also neglect self-care. Symptoms such as dissociation and psychosis can appear. This can include hallucinations and auditory hallucinations where voices in their heads may say something like, "You are useless, jump off." In severe cases, hospitalization becomes necessary and living with others may not be possible.
Dr. Momon says that people suffering stress and anxiety need to prioritize self-care, make sure they sleep, and maintain a positive mindset. Only then can they effectively support their loved ones. Dormo, whose son is on death row, still holds on to hope that he'll be released one day, and she prays every day for him and for others like him.
May all the political prisoners be released, including my son from insane prison. May the efforts of the youth outside be successful. Only when they succeed can my son return home as soon as possible.
We hope you enjoyed this edition of Do Athan. You can listen to our podcast via the Do Athan Facebook page. It can also be found on SoundCloud, YouTube and iTunes. You can also listen every Saturday night from 9 to 10 p.m. and Sunday morning from 6 to 7 a.m. on Voice of America Radio. The project to support human rights reporting is delivered by Fundación Hirondelle, and it's made with the support of our donors.